Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Al-Maa'idah, ayah number 76. قال الله تعالى: قل أتعبدون من دون الله ما لا يملك لكم ضرا ولا نفعا والله هو السميع العليم. He says, قل, say, O Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, do you people worship, as in do you Christians worship, min dunillahi, besides Allah, what does not have the power or the ability to harm you? So dur is harm, darran is maf'ulun bihi, and naf'an, which means benefit. And this is because Isa alayhi salam cannot harm you nor benefit you, and Allah is the hearer and the knower. Notice the huwa, damirul fasl, it is for emphasis. So reflecting on ayah number 76, we pick up the obvious benefit that shirk makes no sense. You're worshipping either people or things which cannot harm you nor benefit you, which leads us to then conclude that the true deity does have the ability to harm you and benefit you. So it is vital to know that we understand and recognize things through their characteristics. The true deity has the characteristics of a true deity. The true prophet has the characteristics of a true prophet. The true divine scripture has the characteristics of a true divine scripture. We also pick up the two names of Allah, Samir and Alim. In the context of this ayah though, talking of people worshipping other than Allah, these two names are mentioned as a threat, that Allah hears your shirk and He knows of your shirk, and therefore will consequently requite you for your shirk. However, someone might ask that they make dua to their idols and their dua comes true. So does this not mean that their idol has the ability to benefit them? In answer to this, we simply say that your dua was answered subsequently, not consequently. So your dua being answered was not as a consequence of your dua to the idol, but it was subsequent, meaning it came after your dua, and they are not the same thing. If B follows A, it does not mean that B follows because of A. Ayah number 77. قل يا أهل الكتاب لا تغلوا في دينكم غير الحق ولا تتبعوا أهواء قوم قد ضلوا من قبل وأضلوا كثيرا وضلوا عن سواء السبيل. So again, this ayah calls out to the Ahl al-Kitab. These are from the Yahud and Nasara, of course. He says, لا تغلوا, from غلا يغلو, غلوان, which means to go to extremes or be excessive. Do not be excessive or go to extremes in your deen. غير الحق, other than the truth, or we could say here, beyond the truth. And this is because the Christians deem Isa alayhi salam to be deity, and that is of course extremism, and the Yahud deem him to be a false prophet, and that is of course extremism on the other end. So the truth is in the middle. And he says, do not tattabi'u, to follow, ittaba'a yattabi'u, ittiba'an, to follow, ahwa, plural of hawa, desires. It has the same root letters as hawa yahwi, which means to fall, because your desires will make you fall, as in fall from grace and into misguidance. He says, do not follow the desires of a qawm, of a people who were misguided before, meaning before you. So he's talking about those early Christians before the advent of the last prophet ﷺ, who invented the doctrine of the Trinity and the divinity of Isa ﷺ to conform to the pagan norms. The pagans, of course, were in power in those days. So the Jews and the Christians, they made tahrif of their scriptures. They chopped and changed, followed their desires, and they were misguided. And he says, وَأَضَلُّوا كَثِيرًا, and they misguided many other people because of their tahrif. وَضَلُّوا عَنْ سَوَاءِ السَّبِيلِ, and they were misguided from the right path or from the straight path. So sawa here means straight. So this is just clarifying what he said before. Before he says قَدْ ضَلُّوا مِنْ قَبْلِ, and then now he says وَضَلُّوا عَنْ سَوَاءِ السَّبِيلِ. So this is what they were misguided from. They were misguided from the straight path, which is Al-Islam, of course, and true Tawheed and monotheism, and the belief in all prophets as human beings. Okay, so reflecting on ayah number 77, we find in this ayah that the Prophet is ordered, قُل, say. However, what is well known is that he is ordered to convey the whole of the Quran, not just this ayah 77. And this is because sometimes Allah Jalla wa Ala will order him to say certain things because of extra concern that Allah may have. So in this case, the concern that the Christians and Jews are going to extremes in their deen. And from this ayah, we also pick up that the Jews and Christians have gone to extremes in their deen. And this prohibition also applies to us, because there are many from the Muslimin who also go to extremes in their deen as well. We also take that ghulu, extremism, is opposed to the truth, because he says غَيْرَ الْحَقِّ, beyond the truth. We learn in this ayah that Allah Jalla wa Ala is forbidding the Ahlul Kitab, and everyone else for that matter by extension, from being a yes man. That is to say, just nodding your head and going along with the flow. Just because everyone in your society and your forefathers and your predecessors were upon one particular belief system or religion does not make that religion or belief system true. Rather, all things must be referred to the Quran and the Sunnah. Ayah number 78. لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى ابْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. He says those who committed kufr from the Banu Israel were cursed on the tongue of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam. Abdullah ibn Abbas says that they were cursed in all the scriptures. So in the scripture of the Torah, they were cursed, as Musa alayhi salam recited it to them. And in the Az-Zabur, Dawood alayhi salam would recite it, they were cursed in that scripture. And in the Injil as well, the scripture of Isa alayhi salam, they were cursed. And why were they cursed? The ayah tells us, ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. That is because they asaw, from asa ya'si isyanan, to disobey, and ya'tadun, from i'tida, to cross the red line or to exceed the bounds when you commit sins. Or you can say to transgress the limits of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Notice a grammatical matter. It says lisan, meaning tongue, of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam. These are two people, yet the word lisan is a singular. It is not in dual format. Lisanay Dawood wa Isa ibn Maryam. So why is it singular? It is singular because each of Dawood and Isa alayhi salatu wasalam has one tongue. So the tongue is singular on that basis. It is also possible grammatically to have the dual format lisanay, and it is also possible to have a plural format alsinati Dawood wa Isa ibn Maryam. All three are possible grammatically speaking. Now many mufassirin say that this ayah is revealed about the Ashabul Sabt, those people who violated the Sabbath day. However, the ayah is general and it speaks about the Banu Israel rebelling against Allah Jalla wa Ala and belying his ayat, because they were people who followed their desires. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. So picking up some lessons from ayah number 78, we find that from Banu Israel there were those who were kuffar and they were cursed, and there were those who were proper believers, they were not cursed. And we find that the curse has a cause, which is the asyan and i'tida, which we spoke about. Of course, we mentioned cursed means when you're banished from the mercy of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And all the kuffar, of course, are cursed. They are cursed in the Quran, and they are cursed in all the previous scriptures as well. And we also find that any threat or prohibition or order which is issued to Banu Israel also applies to us. That is the whole reason why Banu Israel are mentioned in the Quran, is that we may take admonition and lessons from their practices. هذا والله أعلم.